If you didn't know, Donald Trump is about to take out all the Venezuelan cartels and wipe out America's drug problem once and for all. But of course, he's doing it in his own way. You know, this kind of way that could drag the US into a real war and destabilize the whole region. But alright, here's what happened. The US claimed that it sank a Venezuelan cartel boat, killing 11 people. Venezuela flat out denied it and called the whole thing fake, and now Trump's showing off American military power with strikes and warships, fighter jets, while Maduro's getting his army ready and talking tough. So that's where things stand right now. But honestly, there's a lot more going on under the surface, and to really understand what's happening and where this could lead, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna ask AI to explain what's happening between the two countries, whether this is really about fighting cartels like Trump claims, and by the end, I'll have ChatGPT predict how an actual war between the US and Venezuela would look and what the consequences could be if it actually happens. But before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and feel free to share this with your friends or on social media so more people can see it. Alright, thanks a lot, and now let's get into it. Since I work with AI almost every day, I've tried a bunch of them. Some are good, some aren't, but the thing is, they often reject my requests, like here when I just wanted to make a picture for fun. And that's when I switched over to Venice AI, today's sponsor. And as you can see, it handles it no problem. Venice AI works privately right inside your browser or device. There's no tracking, no filters, nobody's spying on what you type. You just ask and it actually responds. No data mining, no censorship, no random warnings telling you your prompt is off limits. And if you go pro, you get the whole toolkit. Upload files, get quick summaries, customize how the AI replies, and even switch safe mode off completely. No tricks, no hidden limits. And the coolest part, AI characters. Each one feels different, some sharp, some brutally honest, some almost too real. So if you're ready for AI without the handcuffs, head to venice.ai/iaskAI and use the code IAskAI for 20% off a pro plan, or just scan the QR code and see for yourself. Huge thanks to Venice AI for supporting the channel, and now let's get to the video. Alright, and here we go. First, let me show you my earlier messages where I asked it to do the research on this topic. ChatGPT's fully up to date, and it's ready to answer the questions. It has to be clear, straightforward, unbiased, call a spade, no sugarcoating, no fluff, you know the drill. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure all of us fully understand what's going on, about who's right, who's not, and all of that. And since it already pulled all the information, let's ask AI to break it all down for us in detail with its own thoughts along the way. And here's what it said. Trump has kicked off a high-risk game with Venezuela, and it's not just about stopping drug boats. On September 2nd, the US military hit a speedboat in the Caribbean, killing 11 alleged members of Tren de Aragua, a violent Venezuelan gang. Trump bragged that it was a clean strike, no US losses, a warning to anyone thinking about smuggling drugs into America. Venezuela instantly denied the event even happened, accused Washington of faking evidence, and blasted it as an excuse for aggression. Right there, you see the clash. Washington calling it law enforcement with bombs, Caracas calling it war. Since then, the escalation has only grown. Just this week, Trump ordered 10 F-35 stealth fighters to Puerto Rico, joining 8 US warships, a nuclear submarine, and thousands of Marines already positioned in the region. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called the strike part of a very serious mission and says more are coming. That's not posturing, that's preparation for sustained operations. Maduro is now cranking up the rhetoric even harder. He's mobilizing militias and reservists, telling citizens to get ready to fight off what he calls the biggest foreign threat in 100 years. He says the US has warships, submarines, and missiles aimed at Venezuela. To be fair, the US really does have a lot of firepower parked just off his coast. When you line up stealth jets, destroyers, marines, and submarines around a country, you're sending a message far bigger than just fighting cartels. Trump's framing is clever politics. He's merging the war on drugs with the war on terror, branding cartels as narco-terrorists. That gives him a legal and moral excuse to hit them hard. Americans are angry about fentanyl and cartel violence, so the public eats it up. But let's be honest, this isn't just about cocaine. Trump's got an eye on domestic politics. Republicans face rough midterms in 2026, and nothing rallies support like a show of military strength against a villain abroad. A string of flashy strikes could be his way to look tough and distract from problems at home. The danger is Venezuela isn't a soft target. Maduro may be hated by much of his people, but he's still backed by his military and has foreign partners who don't like America throwing its weight around. Venezuela also has advanced air defenses supplied and maintained with outside help. If the US starts hitting targets on land, the odds rise that Americans end up killing foreign contractors or specialists who aren't Venezuelan at all. That kind of accident could blow the whole thing wider. Then there's the economic reality. Venezuela sits on the largest oil reserves in the world. Even whispers of US military action push oil prices up. A sustained conflict or blockade would send them soaring. That hurts the global economy and fuels more chaos in energy markets. So while Trump can call this a crackdown on gangs, the ripple effects could hit wallets everywhere. Here's my bottom line. Trump is rolling the dice. He loves the image of strength, the applause lines about hitting terrorists and protecting Americans. But the line between symbolic strikes and a messy regional conflict is razor thin. If he sticks to a few showy hits on drug boats, he'll ride the headlines and boost his strongman persona. If he pushes harder, bombing bases, targeting Maduro's regime directly, he risks creating a conflict that drags the US into something far bigger than he bargained for. He's gambling that intimidation and shock will be enough. History says once the shooting starts, control slips away fast. That's the danger in front of us. Okay, now I get it. And yeah, the danger really does feel like it's right in front of us. But honestly, I think it'll end like pretty much everything that Trump does. Loud claims, everyone thinks something big is coming, and then the story ends up shifting and the last topic just fades away. But still though, what if it doesn't? What if the US actually invaded Venezuela and began a real war? That's what I'm gonna ask next. But before we move on, take a second to hit the like button if you're enjoying this video. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I know it might sound scripted, but honestly it's a win-win because it helps me to keep on making all of these videos on a regular basis, and it tells YouTube to recommend you more channels like mine, so you'll always catch something that you're interested in. Speaking of more content, I've got a playlist that I really recommend you check out. It's got everything on Donald Trump. Breakdowns of his policies, fact checks of his speeches, predictions of what he might do next. Basically, every move that he's made so far is covered in that playlist. So if you're looking for more AI takes on Trump, I'll leave a link in the description so you can check it out anytime you want. Okay, now let's move on to the final part. Alright, we're back. Now it's time to hear how ChatGPT sees a full-scale war between Venezuela and the United States. And I'm hoping it doesn't get too deep into battle tactics, but more into the political consequences for both countries. Alright, let's see what it has to say. If the US actually launched a full-scale war against Venezuela, Maduro wouldn't last long as the head of government. Venezuela's military is nowhere near a match for America's firepower. US airstrikes would wipe out air defenses quickly, command centers would be hit in the opening days, and any conventional fight would collapse fast. Maduro's army could resist in pockets, but the bigger danger for Washington would come from guerrilla tactics, militias, and chaos on the ground, not from Venezuela's regular forces. Maduro himself would either be forced into exile, probably fleeing to an ally like Cuba, Russia, or maybe even Iran, or he'd be captured and paraded as the dictator who finally got toppled. In the worst case for him, he'd end up dead, either from a targeted strike or from his own people turning on him once the US moved in. His government wouldn't survive the first stage of a real invasion. For Trump, it would be far more complicated. At first, he'd get the headlines he loves: US forces striking hard, victories against cartel targets, images of Venezuelan defenses crumbling. He'd brag that no one's ever been tougher on narco-terror, and his base would eat it up. The stock market might even rally briefly around the shock and awe phase, just like it did in the early days of Iraq. But then reality sets in. Venezuela isn't just a weak state with oil, it's also a massive humanitarian crisis waiting to explode. Millions of people are already struggling with food shortages and poverty, and war would send refugees pouring across borders. Neighboring countries like Colombia and Brazil would blame the US for destabilizing the region, and anti-American sentiment across Latin America would skyrocket. Trump would own that fallout. Domestically, he'd run into the wall of American war fatigue. The US publicly simply doesn't have the stomach for another endless foreign intervention, especially in a place that most voters don't see as a direct threat. Casualties, even small numbers, would trigger anger, costs would balloon, oil prices would spike, feeding inflation, and Trump's opponents would hammer him for plunging America into another forever war. The same voices that once cheered the strongman routine would start to question why US soldiers are dying in Caracas. So, my prediction? A real war ends with Maduro gone from power, one way or another, but Venezuela doesn't suddenly become a stable democracy. It would likely collapse into years of insurgency, instability, and outside meddling from countries like Russia and China. For Trump, the war would start as a political win, but turn into a heavy liability. His decisive image would fade once Americans realized the US had just walked into another costly, messy conflict. He could even lose political ground in the long run, being remembered not as the man who crushed cartels, but as the president who lit another fuse in America's long line of endless wars. That's the bottom line. Maduro loses power, Trump loses credibility, both end up worse off than they expected. And that's it. Like I said, nobody's probably gonna escalate it that far, thank goodness. But let me know in the comments what you think. And don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the join or thanks button if you want to support the channel directly. After that, since chat brought up the midterms in this video, go and check out the next one where I asked it to predict the outcome of the 2026 midterms, because I'm sure that you'll enjoy that one as well. Okay, thanks for watching, click on that pop-up, and I'll be waiting for you there.